The ice storm across parts of the southern plains from Texas to Tennessee is winding down, or actually has already wound down. And we have a quick shot of bitter cold air coming into the Northeast. And more remarkable is probably the reflexive rebound that's going to come once the cold air pulls out later on Saturday. And much of the rest of the country is enjoying relatively quiet weather on this Thursday, the 2nd of February. 2023, and welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. I'm doing this on 2 hours sleep, okay? So everybody kind of be patient with me. Brought to you by Omni.
We're gonna make this a short show tonight,
yes,
so Joe can get some night. So
brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. They've got salt, they got sand, and they've got mulch, because very soon attentions will turn to spring and making your home look brilliant. So they're getting ready for that. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices. Joe Rayo, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Hello, Joe.
Hello. So, anyhow, just real quick off the top, I'm actually back in New York for a short visit. I'm seeing one of my best friends who is not very well at all, and I took an opportunity to just come up here and see him. And those of you watching tonight, if you can send your best thoughts and wishes to my friend John, it would be most appreciated. And Joe, I drove up last night, and I actually had a lot of energy yesterday on the drive, so I wasn't really that sleepy. I got here, I left at 2 o'clock in the afternoon from Marietta. I got here at 6 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a minor glitch in Virginia, about 30 miles south of Washington, because they're building there's a new interstate. They're building this overpass, and they had to shut the highway down for about 30 minutes while they moved some big piece of road and put it up like 5,000 feet up in the air, or however high it was. So there was that. And then I'm driving through Washington. Of course, it's never simple to drive through D.C. You could stay on 95, but then you risk construction. So the GPS takes me first. So the GPS tells me to take 395. Then from 395, Joe, I go to 695. And then from 695, I go to Maryland State Route 295. And from there, I go to 895, which takes me through the Harbor Tunnel in Baltimore, and then finally back onto 95. So that was also a bit of an adventure. And by the way, I will leave you with this one thought that I know you will agree with me on this. There's a special place in hell for people who drive with their brights on.
Huh. Yes. Not just the brights; those high intensity tungsten, yellowish white lights that I see quite often up here where I live, because there aren't any street lights. There are street lights, but people, they just need to, and they don't even have etiquette to know that when they can see you coming from beyond a hill or whatever like that, and you could tell another car is coming, you turn your brights off. Some people just don't do that.
No.
I don't understand why.
Oh, what was that? What happened here? You disappeared on me. Hold on. Just some weird thing happened. You disappeared.
Oh.
So I have to rebuild something. Something got. All right, just give me a second. I'll fix you up here. Hey. This is, this is really being one. It's already one of those nights tonight. And let me change this. No, that's not it. No, that's not it.
I haven't been past the Washington, D.C. area by car in a long time, but I mean, there's the Beltway. Don't you just get to Washington's outskirts and get on the Beltway and go around halfway or whatever like that, and then go up into Maryland?
Well, you could get on 495. That's the only one I didn't mention really. 495 for that.
Yeah.
But the thing with that is, it's a very difficult road. 495. I mean, it's the interstate, but it's all curves. So you can't, there's hardly any straightaways on that. So you're constantly going for 27 miles. You're going around all these curves. I'm sorry, folks. Just give me a moment here. I don't know what that was. Something happened.
Well, so long as they can hear me, Joe. I mean, they don't have to see me. Do they? Or
no, they do. They have to see you. You're the sort of person people need to see.
Hi, folks.
Okay. So, we had the day off yesterday. The GFS, this morning cooperated by showing a run that put 2 fake snowstorms in the long range, which of course were immediately gone on the next run. So that takes care of that. And we've got. I'm actually more as cold as this air mass is that's coming down, particularly for New England, which is going to get. You're going to get temperatures that are going to be double-digit below zero, 10 to 20 below, even 20 to 25 below the further north you go by Saturday morning. The thing I find more remarkable is the fact that Boston, for example, might be somewhere between -5 and -10 Saturday morning. They're going to be at 44, 45 by Sunday afternoon. New York City maybe gets down to 5 or so. They're going to be at 44, 45 Sunday afternoon. This is so quick that it's almost like the blink of an eye. It comes in and goes out, and the temperatures just snap right back.
And I heard on the CBS Evening News tonight, it was the number one story, the weather, as well it should be. But the person who was reading the headlines referred to it, and the polar vortex. And I said, what? Excuse me? The polar vortex? That's what's bringing all of this cold air in and suddenly out? I mean, this is not the polar vortex. This is something totally different, isn't it?
Well, it's the latest. It's the latest apocalypse, Joe. Everything is apocalyptic. Everything affects 75,000 billion people.
Do you know that they were talking about frost quakes tonight?
Oh, can we just stop? You know what this is doing? In all seriousness, you know what this is doing? This is actually making people afraid of the basic day-to-day stuff that goes on. We have to be afraid of drizzle. We have to be afraid of rain. We have to be afraid of snow showers. We have to be afraid of snow squalls. We have to be afraid of snow, period. Okay? And on it goes. I mean, and the thing is, the stuff that you probably need to be cautious around, which is, thunderstorms, certainly if there's tornado risk and hurricanes and maybe a severe blizzard or a severe ice storm, that gets played up, all the time. But they play up the stuff that doesn't require playing up or playing at all. It's just the basic everyday stuff.
They look for things to get you scared, basically.
Yes, exactly. And the chairman, Scott Briller, points out as he hits Super Chat tonight, thank you, Scott. Do you remember on yesterday's date, Joe, in 2021, New York City, Central Park, 14.8 inches of snow? And that was that was just 2 years ago.
I do remember it only because on my Facebook memories page, I was doing like a blow-by-blow of that storm from up here where I live in Putnam Valley. And I think like at 5 p.m. I reported 15.3 inches of snow here at the home base, just reported into the National Weather Service. So, yeah, 2 years ago, we were doing a lot of shoveling right about this time. But that was then. This is now. When I went down to get the mail this afternoon, I'm coming up the driveway. I'm just looking at my lawn, and I actually stopped. And I looked, and I said, there's my lawn. There's not even a trace of any kind of snow on the lawn. the lawn actually looks more green than brown.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy. This really has been a crazy winter.
I did.
And somebody on Facebook said, "Whoa, you think that this is due to global warming? Do you think that this is the cause of that?" And I said, "I'll agree with you that this is due to global warming or climate change if you can give me a proper explanation as to why January of 2009, January of 2011, January of 2014, January of 2015 were all frigidly cold and as cold or as below normal as we were above normal in January." Nobody seems to have any explanation for that. We always suddenly the talk of global warming and climate change always disappear in those very cold periods that we do have and will continue to have. But when we have a period like this where it's abnormally warm, then we hear all of the people talk about global. And and by the way, try talking about that to the people in China who, and we've mentioned this, Joe, already, have been experiencing probably one of the coldest winters that they have ever seen on record in China. Where's all that cold air going? It's not going any,
the world does not revolve around your zip code. Okay?
Yep.
That's what it, that's the thing that bugs me about all this. It's as if the rest of the world doesn't exist. It's just this one little spot that this dot that I live on, okay? That's all that matters. It's not snowing on my dot, so there must be something wrong with the world, okay? My answer to this is come back to me and let's have this conversation if we have 10 winters in a row of sub 5-inch snowfalls. I'll even give you this: 10 inches in a row of sub 10-inch snowfalls. I'll make the window a little wider. When we have those, okay, and at the same time, the West Coast, the western part of the United States has no snow, okay? Not just the east, but the west. In other words, there's this giant ridge, like you see sometimes in the summertime, that goes almost from one coast to the other.
Coast.
Okay?
Yep. 600 heights.
Exactly. So when you see that, then you can come back to me and we'll have a conversation about it. Otherwise, the world does not revolve around your zip code, as I said. And
well,
this stuff has happened so many times before. That's the other thing. It's not as if this has never happened before. Every 20 or 30 years you get a winter like this, or maybe even longer than that. The last one like this, I guess, to compare was probably 72, 73. All right. Maybe you can throw in those 5-inch winters that we've had peppered along the way. And there's one in the 90s. There's one in the last 20 years. I think 2011, 2012. Maybe the one in 1920. So every 20 years or so, you get a winter like this. And Joe, you've said, you've pointed out many times how nature is the great equalizer. At some point, the rubber band will snap back, and you'll have one winter. Might not even have two in a row, but you might have one winter that makes up for the lack of snowfall of, say, the prior 3 or 4.
No, I saw it in the West. I mean, we were Renata and I were out in the southwestern United States back in the spring. Well, all we heard, all we saw was, "Oh, it's terrible. Oh, we're in a horrible drought. Oh, we need water. Oh, we need rain." And then all of a sudden, in December and January, came the rains, came the much needed relief from all of this. And what have I heard ever since? Complaints. "Oh, it's too much rain. Oh, it's excessive. Oh, mudslides in Malibu and this and that." Blah, blah, blah. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. For all of this that we're going through right now here in the Northeast, with the lack of any snow and mild temperatures, I mean, I don't even have to use this analogy. I mean, 2 years ago it was cold. 2 years ago we had more snow than we knew what to do with, and now 2 years later it's just the opposite. Weather does change, and next year or the year after we could very well be back shoveling and blowing and scraping or whatever. So all I could tell all of you who want that kind of weather is wait a little while. And for those of you who don't particularly care for it, enjoy. I have yet to start my snowblower once. And my personal record up here in Putnam Valley, by the way, I didn't have to use the snowblower until February, Valentine's Day in 2007, when I had to deal with 3 inches of sleet and ice and snow. But that's my personal record up here. I'd love to be able to match that or exceed that this year by not having to start the blankety blank machine to do all of that. And as Yogi said, as Yogi Berra said, it ain't over until it's over. And who knows? Maybe not necessarily February, but March or even early April. I said to Renata yesterday, I said, wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if sometime in mid or late March we had a storm that we ended up getting all the snow? We're making up for the whole winter in one big lump. It has happened, folks. It may happen this year.
There was a winter.
We'll see.
There's a winter, I want to say in the 50s. When I was looking at the stats, I don't remember exactly what year it is, but there was not that much snow in December, January, or February. I mean, I think it was less than 10 inches for the 3 months combined. And then and I believe maybe that February had only a trace. The March produced in New York City, so I'm sure it was probably more surrounding. 30 plus inches. So look, it depends on, I'm not terribly optimistic about any major changes in the pattern, because we've gone from one pattern that's been, that was totally unfavorable for any kind of systems in the East Coast. The pattern changed to one that's even more not favorable for weather in the East Coast. And here we have this, this sort of 1 week window that we've had this week that, you could probably count the number of flakes that fell all week long, with coatings here and there. And people, some people were sarcastically saying, how much did your coating measure today from what fell overnight? And I was noticing today here in some of the shaded areas here that there was, still a little bit left over from a coating from a night or so ago. So, it'll at the last analysis, it all will even out. It may not. It just that it won't necessarily even out today. So let's do the watches and warnings.
Wait a minute, before you do that,
okay,
you mentioned the two snowstorms in March. This is March of 1956. How do I know that? What I'm holding right now is volume 2. Not volume. He couldn't have just done it in one volume. He did it in 2 volumes. Isaac Asimov, the great Isaac Asimov, the great science writer, he did his autobiography in 2 volumes. This particular one is called Enjoy Still Felt. It's very interesting. It was almost like a daily journal. He kept notations about everything, including the weather. I want to read to you, Joe. This is when he moved to West Newton, Massachusetts in March of 1956. And he writes, and I'm quoting here from the book, "We had a nice wide driveway on the street side of the house, and on Friday, March 16, 1956, 4 days after we moved in, it started snowing about noon. It really didn't snow all that much through the course of the winter season, so I really didn't mind all that much. But on this day, March 16, 1956, it kept on snowing. That in itself was not surprising. It had been a bitterly cold winter following the bitterly hot, dry summer, and there had been much snow, and there had been some snow. But this snowstorm kept on snowing and storming and turned out to be the worst of the season. The wind blew it into the driveway, and the retaining walls on either side kept it there, so that when I woke up on Saturday morning, there was about 3 feet of snow in the driveway. I am not exaggerating or being dramatic. I measured the snow depth. There had been times, as it happened, when I shoveled snow for my father to make a path in front of the candy store. That had always been a minor job. Since I'd left the candy store 14 years before, I had not shoveled one snowflake. At 7:15 a.m., I started shoveling with one of the snow shovels I had bought as part of the normal paraphernalia of a New England house. All Saturday, I chipped away at the snow. Then finally, 2 men in a Jeep came around and for $8 bulldozed away most of the snow, leaving me to do the work around the edges. Whereupon on Monday, March 19th, another blizzard hit. And this time we ended up with 4 feet of snow in the driveway. The worst 1-2 snowstorm in the history of the Boston Weather Bureau. A double whammo. No one had ever seen anything like it before, and it came in the first week that I had moved into my new home. So, ladies and gentlemen, That was in 1956. There really wasn't all that much snow up until that point in time. And then all of a sudden, 2 storms measuring many feet of snow in and around Newton, Massachusetts. And I'm sure that New York City also received a hefty amount of snow there. So all I'm saying is don't throw in the towel yet, because it can happen. And in fact, Joe, you've often mentioned the storm in 1998, where it didn't snow until 2 days after the vernal equinox. And then we had our only major snowfall of the season of 97, 98.
Yeah, it was 4 or 5 inches over a small area. Yeah.
Hey, look,
but it was
5 inches of snow. That would be something compared to what we've had already. So.
Right. And Central Park, by the way, got 4/10 of an inch Wednesday morning. So they got the measurable is down. So this will not be a completely snowless winter with 4/10 of an inch on the books. And there were a couple of streaks that were still going that were like the number of days from the last measurable snowfall from last March. I think it had like 3 or 4 days to go to tie that record, and now it didn't do it. So there. So on that note, now let's go to the maps and see what's going on. And really, it's just kind of quiet everywhere. It's just a couple of minor local points of interest here. And that is, if you look up in northern Maine, 1, 2, 3, 4 counties are under a blizzard warning. Now, I looked at the Weather Service office there. If we go to that, you can see where the blizzard warnings, which include Holton, Maine, Caribou, and a few other Presque Isle, and a few other well-known and not so well-known spots. And right now, by the way,
a rustic county.
Yes.
Know it well.
29 right now in Bangor, Maine. The snow amounts that are being forecast. We look at the winter weather, the office's snowfall forecast for northern Maine. It's not that much. Okay, well, if the map will ever come up, still trying to load. It is, but take it from me, since the map is taking forever to load. Oh, there we go. Only forecasting 2 to 3 inches up here, but because of the wind and the fact that they're going to have temperatures probably at -20 or -25, they've got a problem here. So they actually will have a blizzard based on the old definition. And in terms of temperatures, wind chills, by the way, Joe, they're going for, look at these wind chills up in central and northern Maine. Pattern, Maine. Now that's an interesting, Patton, Maine, -57, -55 in Holton, Maine, Presque Isle -57, Caribou -57. These are wind chills, folks. -59 for Van Buren, Fort Kent -58, Dickey -58, and Clayton Lake -61. Now I don't know where this minus how do you, Joe? Is it Katahdin?
Katahdin.
Okay, no, minus, there must be elevation there. -90 on the wind chill. -90.
Well, I'm wondering if that's where Mount Katahdin is. That's presumably supposedly the highest point on the east. That's where they often say that the very first sunrise, or the light of the first sunrise each day, is visible from Mount Katahdin. So, yeah, there you are, folks.
Well, at least you know how to pronounce it. I do not know. I do not know. I struggled with pronouncing it, as you noticed. And
yes.
Hang on one second, Joe. I just had to put my phone down there. Also, we've got wind chill advisories, wind chill warnings from the Dakotas across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. They actually have the wind chill advisories up for, is that let me see, just to make sure I'm looking at, wind chill advisories up for the lower Hudson Valley and eastern Long Island. They do not have it up for central and western Long Island, nor do they have it up for New York City and northeast New Jersey and Westchester County. But they do have it up for southern Connecticut and for northwest New Jersey. So it's bitter cold wind chills in northwest New Jersey, but not in northeast New Jersey, but in eastern Long Island and in southwestern Connecticut and the Hudson Valley, but not in New York City. I don't know. Just kind of, I don't know why they've got that hole in the middle.
I don't know either. I mean, heck, if it drops down to like 15 to 20 below zero, I don't even know why they wouldn't put up some kind of a wind chill advisory, since that's so unusual.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they have to. Go by the book, Joe, and if they hit a certain criteria for them to issue that. But regardless, no matter where you live, it'll be cold tomorrow night.
Yeah.
In fact, according to as best I can tell from the 12Z NAM FOOS, the North American model, the core of the cold air actually will be over us at 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, and the T1 temperatures remain the same through Saturday, 7 a.m. Although one thing I did notice, Joe, very interesting, is that the thicknesses start climbing noticeably by the time we get to Saturday morning. I don't know whether or not that means that the upper levels are going to start warming faster than down below. But it also seems to indicate that, several days ago, the models were kind of hinting that, places like where I live and even New York might even be near or slightly below zero. I would be like -5 or -8 or whatever. And it seems to me that what is happening is that all the cold air is rushing in faster than what the models were suggesting earlier on, and rushing in so quick that by the time we get to even Saturday afternoon, there's going to be the beginning of the noticeable rise in temperature, leading to that big jump that you just mentioned earlier, where it's going to be like in the teens to around 20 on Saturday for many places. And by Sunday afternoon, those same places will probably be in the low to mid 40s.
Yeah, but
crazy.
The problem is that look, I'm just looking at the GFS real quick. The coldest air, as measured from 18,000 feet down to the ground, when you look at the thicknesses, the coldest air actually is tomorrow evening. That's when the thickness is bottom, and then they're at 498 in New York City, which certainly, if that was at 7 o'clock in the morning, would and as long as you had a mostly north wind, you probably would be below zero. But it's coming in tomorrow. That's why the tomorrow actually could in some ways be the worst day, because you're going to have temperatures that are going to start out with the highs of the day very early, and by the end of the afternoon, you're going to be down in the low and mid-teens in most places. So temperatures are actually going to be slowly falling as we go through the day. So tomorrow may actually feel worse, because it's just, as the day goes on, if you're outside, it's just going to feel colder and colder, get more and more windy. But yeah, the core of the cold air is already out during Friday night, and by Sunday afternoon, it is you got a southwest, almost a screaming southwest wind with temperatures in the 40s. What's going to stop it? Nothing's going to stop it from getting up that high.
After we get through tomorrow and into part of Saturday, you'll see people walking around on Sunday with shorts on. I mean, you get acclimated to one thing, all of a sudden, oh, it's so nice out there, honey. Let's jump in the pool.
Yes. So here's the European for Saturday morning. The European was the most aggressive with the cold, but again, the timing is just a little faster. So New York City at 5, Islip at 3, Philadelphia at 13, 14 at Vineland. Then you go just north of New York City, Bridgeport -1, Waterbury -7, Hartford -7, Boston -10, Worcester -13, Albany -9, Oneonta -10. I'm going to just switch. Let's just switch geographies here. Let's go up to northern New England and have a little fun with what they got for lows. And I mean, here you have not as many cities showing up, but Lewiston, Maine, 20 below, Portland, 14 below, Bangor, 21 below, Presque Isle, 23 below. You see the Canadian temperatures here that are showing up. St. George, -27. Whoops, sorry, let me get rid of this sounding. It was just driving me crazy. -27 in St. George. Sherbrooke, -26. Granby, -24. Burlington, -13. And if we switch geographies again, and let's go to let's go to Western New York. Even you got some Watertown -3, but then the numbers go positive. Syracuse, Utica 5 above. So Saratoga Springs is. Hold on, I got the wrong time frame. I'm sorry. Let me just go to 72 hours. So here's So Utica's -15, Syracuse -5, Elmira 0, Buffalo 1 above, 3 at Jamestown, 6 in Clarion, Pennsylvania, 8 at Williamsport. So the coldest air is going to be, if you draw a line, say from New York City, just north of New York City, north and west, the below zero line. So New York's, in fact, I will draw the line. Why don't I just do it myself? I can draw a line here. So let's go from just north and west of New York City to just south of Binghamton, Elmira, to just north of Buffalo. All your cold air is to the northeast, and it's actually warmer to the southwest, relatively speaking.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be in and it's going to be out. So put up with it for the time that it's here, because it'll be out and things will feel much better out there by the time we get to Sunday. By the way, Keith James the second, Friday, February 3rd, 2023, the exact halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Well, no, not exactly. Actually, if you really want it down to the nearest minute, it will be 4:36 a.m., which I hope everybody will be asleep and in their nice warm beds on Saturday morning. That's the exact halfway point between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. And actually, that's only in terms of timing, because the Earth is going around the sun in an ellipse. There's actually a second time that you could use for the midpoint of winter, and that possibly could be what Keith James is talking about, because we're moving faster in our orbit now because we're actually closer to the sun. I won't get into the whole thing. Just simply, take your pick. It's either the third or the fourth, depending upon what you want to look at. But we're at the midpoint of winter right now, astronomical winter. We're already past the midpoint of meteorological winter, and according to we atmospheric scientists or meteorologists, winter will be over, believe it or not, on the 28th of February. That'll be the last day of meteorological winter, if there was a winter at all to talk about this particular year of 2023.
Right, which consists based of basically 2 Arctic blasts that lasted all of 3. If you add it all together, maybe 5 days. Meanwhile, most of the nation now very quiet. The ice storm, the major ice storm from Tennessee to Texas is done. So now it's just the aftermath, and they're going to warm up there too. And the ice is melting. And we've got winter storm watches up in the Sierra Nevadas. There's breaking news for you. And otherwise, the rest of the country is fairly quiet. There's an absolute lack of major storms. Everything is so flat when you look at things. And here's the satellite. Well, it's supposed to be a satellite loop, but apparently pictures taking forever. The loop's taking forever to load. There we go. You can see the high clouds just to the south. This is another one of these flat waves that's going by. We've had 2 of them this week. This third one is going to pass well to our south. And by the way, you can see the Arctic boundary is already, these clouds up here, right up there. Whoops, sorry. There we go. Right up there is where the Arctic front is, and that's moving rapidly southeastward, so that's going to be through here by tomorrow morning. I don't think there's going to be any squalls with that. I didn't mention it.
No, I didn't. No, it's more like patchy clouds than anything else.
Yeah.
And or at worst, because the winds are going to be very strong and blowing down from the north and northwest. So maybe a flake.
Yeah.
If you look really hard, you might see a flake or two, but no, there certainly doesn't look like a squall pattern, because as you said, Joe, last few days, we don't have that little miniature V or little miniature shortwave or trough to help to induce that kind of activity.
It's going way by. There is one, but it's way up to our north and northeast.
Yeah.
They're getting it. You can see it on the radar. There's snow moving into the north central New York there. And also on the Canadian side, it almost looks like a line of showers and thunderstorms, in terms of structure, it's not a line of showers and thunderstorms. There's probably a couple of heavier snow squalls in this band that's running on the Canadian side, just north of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, sweeping southeast. But that's all going to dry up, or most of it will. Meanwhile, you got all this rain with the next and last wave as this eventually becomes this major storm up in eastern Canada that tightens the gradient up and pulls the cold air down. So you got rain from the Carolinas into Georgia, to Alabama, Mississippi, moving northeast, and as I said, what's left of the precipitation in Texas now is mostly rain as the temperatures have risen there, and we've got a little bit of moisture coming in to California. WPC's surface map. There's your Arctic boundary at 4 o'clock this afternoon. As it moves southeastward, it's stalling this cold front and a new wave that's right in southeastern Louisiana. That's going to move off the southeast coast and eventually race up towards south of Newfoundland and explode. There's the bitter cold high, minus double digits in Minnesota, Wisconsin right now, the Dakotas, up moving into the western lakes. Further south in Texas, temperatures near or just above freezing, which is good. Same in Arkansas. Most places now have gone above freezing there, which has alleviated the icing conditions. WPC 7-day rainfall forecast. I'm sorry, liquid precip forecast. I think by the time we get to the end of the winter, I will remember that. A tenth of an inch or less over the next 7 days from Maine to North Carolina, back into central Pennsylvania and western Virginia. And parts of the Hudson Valley and a good chunk of New England. You have to go down to the southeast and across the Gulf states where you get a half to 3/4 of an inch and maybe 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches, northeast Texas to southwestern Arkansas and along the west coast. And guess what on the snow maps, Joe? There isn't much on the snow maps for the next 72 hours. We have probability of at least 2 inches if you get on a cruise to nowhere and head out into the open waters of the Atlantic. The only thing I will say, I think there's a chance tomorrow into tomorrow night in eastern Long Island and southeastern New England, there might be a little bit of ocean effect because of the wind direction and the Arctic nature of the cold air going off of Long Island Sound, going over Long Island Sound, and also over the Gulf of Maine and into southeastern New England. So those areas could wind up with a little surprise coating to maybe an inch or so. But you can see the probability of 2 is confined to the northernmost points of the Great Lakes in northern Maine. And out in the west, of course, the Sierra Nevadas, the Cascades, blah, blah, blah. And in the long range, the absolute lack of major storms. So you've got Sunday into Monday, nothing. A little bit in the west, Monday into Tuesday, most of the nation not doing much of anything. Wednesday, most of the nation not doing much of anything snow-wise. And Thursday, most of the nation not doing much of anything snow-wise. It's just absolute lack of storms, absolute lack of cold air. Go to sleep. That's all it is. And Joe, once again, let me take everybody back. I think it was the 6Z run last night. I think it was. So here's the 6Z run from last night. Of course, the Arctic air goes out. There's a wave off the Florida coast that Sunday night into Monday morning. Most of the stuff with that's offshore. Then you got a weak cold front that comes through on Wednesday. A low that goes to the lakes and to the St. Lawrence Valley on Friday. And then after that, it had some kind of weak wave in the southeast that it took up with a coldish high that came in around February 12th. A little bit of snow there. That wave goes out. Then this next wave comes up, and this actually makes a larger area of snow for the coastal northeast from central New Jersey up into southeastern New England. And then that goes out. And then there was some kind of third low that it developed. And, of course, everybody jumped on that, only to have it disappear on the very next run. And I just looked at this today, and the same thing, Mr. Rayo, nothing. I mean, really. All right, again, it's trying to do something here around the 11th and 12th, and that goes away. And then here we are on the 16th, and then that goes away. And then here it is on the 18th. I mean, it's just
In recent
It's
years,
hopeless. It's just hopeless.
In recent years, around or shortly after Super Bowl Sunday, and Super Bowl Sunday, by the way, is February 12th, that we have had storm systems that have brought some wintry weather to our area. So the fact that this is maybe nature is trying to, kick things into gear by marking off the Super Bowl Sunday. But then again, it was, after all, the intermediate run, the 6Z run, which
6Z, the 12, right, exactly. And then the 12, it's gone. The 18 is gone. But it's just this sort of grasping at straws that that's all there's left to do, is to grasp at straws, because there's nothing. If you look at the upper air pattern again, I look at these on every run, and just to try to find some inkling that something is changing somewhere. And I noticed that on some of the overnight stuff that the models were developing what looks like a nice looking block up between Greenland and Scandinavia, but at the same time there's no vortex in eastern Canada, and there's no low out near Newfoundland to keep the heights low, so you got a ridge that winds up building along the east coast. This big upper low just lifts up and out. There's nothing to hold it. And then I'm just running this through. Now, of course, the model has no block up there. All right, it's got a little bit of one pushing into Greenland, but it's more towards Scandinavia. I mean, it has a slightly colder look to things in the middle and latter part of the forecast period, but there's nothing here to get, at least right now, there's nothing here that I would get excited about. Nothing. Not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing. And the polar vortex in the stratosphere, Joe, it's the same nonsense here. Spins around, stretches. Here it is on this run, as always. It splits it. It always does this. The 6 and 18Z run love to split the polar vortex in two after 330 hours. It just splits it completely in two. This is for February 18th. All right. Now I'm going to go back to the 12Z. And the 12Z, it doesn't. Well, it's instead of splitting it that way, it splits it from over into Europe rather than split it back over to easternmost Siberia. It splits it in the other direction. But does it really happen? That's the question I have. Does this really happen? And does it couple? Because if it doesn't, it can happen. If it doesn't couple, who cares?
Well, our dear friend Judah Cohen today wrote in his tweet, "Happy Groundhog Day. Like the movie, we seem to be in an infinite loop where we anticipate a large polar vortex disruption and for winter to finally arrive, just as the groundhog predicted this morning, and yet it always remains at least 2 weeks out. Spring equinox is now 6 weeks away."
Yeah.
Da-da.
Super chat hits from Steve LaPointe, who points out correctly that I've had more snow here in northeast Georgia than New York City has had. David Fuller.
Twice for him.
Right, twice for David Fuller. He says, Joe's, by now you can't please everybody. And yes, the polar vortex is all brown at the end of each run. And you know what? It never gets here. It's always, as Dr. Cohen pointed out in his tweet, it's always at the end of the forecast period. It doesn't even get to day 10. I'd be happy to see it show up on day 10. Never gets there. Nope. And by the way, if it happens, it's going to take 10 days to 2 weeks to play through the atmosphere, which puts us into the first week of March. So you literally, talk about a ticking clock.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Good Lord. So anyway, do you have Briller Jeopardy tonight?
I believe I do.
Okay. And while you're digging that up, I just want to remind just let everybody know, don't send me messages on Messenger to find out if there's a show. Okay, if there's a show, it'll be there on YouTube, and the chat board will be open. Okay. I try to do it before 5 o'clock. In fact, today I did it early in the morning. All right, but I'm getting people sending me message after message, and I'm very flattered. Okay, but then I get upset with myself because I don't want to leave anybody hanging and thinking that I ignored you. All right, so pay attention. There's no show tomorrow because there's no weather going on. There's no show tomorrow, and I'm still traveling around. No show Saturday and no show on Sunday. So we're going to take a 3-day weekend, and we will be back on Monday, okay, at 7:35 Eastern Time. So there you have it. Now let's do the Briller Jeopardy.
Okay. Chat board participates. New Briller Jeopardy category: February average snowfall by city. We've got 5 of them, starting with Balmer. What is the average snowfall in Baltimore, for those of you who are not natives, for the month of February?
I'm going to say for the month, I'm going to say 7 inches.
Okay.
Baltimore, 7 inches. Let's run through these quick, Joe, because I'm fading.
Okay. Jason Schaefer has 5. Boy, they're really rolling here. David Fuller, 4. Craig Carlberg, 17.6. Ooh. Rosemary Osborne, 5. Chuck Cardillo, 6. East PA, 2. Leon Probitsky, 10. The answer for Baltimore is 7.5 inches.
All right, so I was close. I was close with 7. What's next?
Boston for February.
I'm going to say 14.6 for Boston.
Wow. Okay. 14.5 or 6, 14.6 for Joe Cioffi.
Right.
14.3 for Silvio Balzano. Stink Floyd, 11.8. We have East PA at 11.5. David Rico, 18. Chuck Cardillo, 15. I'm seeing whether or not anybody came closer to Joe. And Mark Teixeira has 14.7. But the answer is 14.4. Joe.
Oh, very good. I missed by point 2.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Number 3, New York City, Central Park.
Isn't it like around 10? 10.2? 10.2.
That's 10.2. Okay. So for the New York City, what do we got? Jason Barry says 8. Stink Floyd says 7.2. Chuck Cardillo says 10.8. Rosemary Osborne, 15. Still looking. David Fuller, 10.3.
Sammy Presley, 10.1.
Yeah. Well, dancing around the answer. Well, actually, Sammy Presley, congratulations. You get the gift certificate to Dicker and Dicker in Beverly Hills.
Oh, let's not go down that road again.
10.1 inches. Well, I saw an old Facebook I posted from like 3 years ago where I had like this big thing over me in the cold and the snow, and I had made that comment like, this is crazy. I look like I just picked this up from there.
Right.
Anyway, 10.1 at Central Park.
Next.
Minneapolis, Mary Richards land.
Minneapolis is. I know that the number's not as high as you might think it is. Okay. I'm going to say it's like, it's actually could be a lowish number, because usually they're so deep in the cold air up there this time of year that they don't get much. So I'm going to say 8.9.
Well, I believe we have somebody. Now, if this is for Minneapolis, we have somebody who's already hit it right on the nose.
And who was that?
William Huber.
Oh,
who says 9.5.
Oh, but it was.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That might have been for his guess for Boston, but it's correct for Minneapolis.
Well, Patrick Darcy has 9.5 also.
Oh, well, congratulations to Patrick.
And Jason Schaefer had 9. So yeah,
and
it is a lowish number up there.
Right. When you compare it to like Boston, for example, it's even closer to Baltimore than to Boston. But
right.
And here's the last one: Nashville, Tennessee. What is the average snowfall in Nashville
for February?
For February, yes.
I'm going to say 2 inches.
For July.
2 inches.
2 inches. Okay. So Joe says 2 inches. This again is for Nashville. 3 inches, says Jason Barry for Nashville. Rosemary Osborne, 1/2 inch. Miss Spallerite, 3 inches. 3 inches for Louis Orizio. I'm looking here. If there's one, yes, Christopher Alley. Congratulations. You win the grand prize for Nashville. 1.5 inches.
All right. All right. And on that note, I am going to crash. You can't really see it. Actually, you can see the pillow I have standing up on the bed there at this lovely room at the Marriott Courtyard that I'm at. Very nice room. I am going to be going night-night. So everybody, listen, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. We will see you back Monday at 7:35. Joe, I'll see you Monday at 7:35 Eastern Time. Nighty-night, everyone.
We will be here. Good night, folks.